Well, thanks for doing this and being my guinea pig on the live stream. Like I say, I don't know whether anybody's going to drop in and watch us. There's a guest already. There's
Oh,
Courtney, who I spoke
wow.
to last time. I'm honoured that
Welcome.
Courtney is there. That's fantastic. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about Cannes, obviously, which you're still there. You've got one more day to go. Is that right?
Yes, today is my last day and last evening, and then the festival closes tomorrow. It hands its awards in the evening. So it's basically the very, very final stretch right now.
Right. Yeah, fantastic. And you've obviously you go more or less every year since I've known you anyway, and you're doing writing for various publications and what have you. So it's kind of that thing, isn't it, for you, of bombing around, fitting in the writing in between the films. What's your kind of broad schedule and approach to the festival?
Yeah, it's a great festival, but also it's the most stressful time. I think I have a very hard time convincing people that I'm struggling while in Cannes
All
because
right.
it's in the French Riviera.
Yeah.
Everybody's here. Like all the news pieces are around whatever's happening at Cannes, red
Mm,
carpet, celebrities. But for me, I come here as a journalist slash critic, and even though this is where all of us get our money's worth and bread and butter,
mm,
we're still quite limited in terms of access. The festival is needs its critics, but it's also clamping down on critics by imposing badge hierarchies. It's like a whole myth
right.
around it. Like you can only get into certain screenings if you have this color badge, and to earn this color badge, you have to have written for
Right.
this many years. And for this kind of publication, and there's always just another layer of exclusivity in Cannes.
Yeah.
So navigating that, I think it took me a few years to get used to this and
Sure.
actually do my job without worrying about how am I going to get into this film, even though I have an assignment for it, but my badge doesn't let me, and
Right.
beg
Oh,
PRs.
that's for the films as well. That's not just like parties and networking
Oh
stuff.
God, no, it's even worse for parties and other events. For
Right. Okay.
films, yeah, it's happened a couple of times that I've had to drop an assignment because I just cannot get a ticket for the film. Um, and I have a pretty decent badge. I've been covering the festival for 7 years now in a row, and I usually write about 20 pieces
Yeah.
out of the festival, which drives me nuts.
Mm,
But I keep returning.
yeah.
I also
It,
wanted to mention that this year and the last few years, it's been extra for me in terms of pressure, but also fun because I'm in a programming role as well.
okay.
A festival curator at the Cambridge Film Festival, which takes place every October. So this is the time where we're starting to put a program together to scout films. So I'm meeting with sales agents, with UK distributors, trying to scope out which films are going to sell in the UK and which films are we potentially going to be able to show towards the end of the year when our festival is at. So being both a critic and a programmer
Mm,
here is exciting.
mm,
It's literally the best of both worlds, but that means that I have zero time
yeah.
to do anything else,
Right.
really.
It's funny because I've got a couple of other friends who are there, but none of them are in the sort of capacity that you're in. And, they're doing that thing of maybe one or two films and then, they're going for ice cream or whatever and coffees and like bit of time on the
Fantastic.
beach. And that's like for you, that's just not the case, is it? It really is a
No,
working scenario.
it's sad because every year I tell myself I'm gonna do more of this,
Mm,
but then there's so many films to watch, so many people to meet, and there's always this buzz that somebody you speak to, they tell you about this film that you didn't even have on your radar. And if somebody talks very passionately about a film, you really want to go and see it. Um, and there's the other kind of buzz that accumulates at the course of the festival. Like this year, Club Kid was that
okay.
title.
Okay.
Um, it's a feature debut that immediately got sold to A24 for like an enormous figure.
Right.
Um, and everybody's been talking about it ever since. So this film, I think, was very much under the radar, and a day after its premiere, everybody was like, okay, everybody need to get on this.
Right.
It's the same thing happened with After Sun a few years
Gotcha.
ago.
Yeah, yeah. Does that happen organically then? It's just like suddenly everybody's talking about the same thing. That's
I
really
think
interesting.
so. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
so. Yeah. Maybe. I mean, it would be right to suspect some some
Yeah,
steering
planting.
here and
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I guess with JD Friedman, who is the director of Club Kid, it was already this high anticipation because he has been an Instagram person
Mm,
for a while. So making the film had already, I don't know, put him on some people's radar,
gotcha.
and I guess and distributors and distribution radar as well to get acquired by 24. After Sun, I don't think it had much hype behind it aside from, oh, let's go see the Paul Mescal film that is in a
Right.
parallel section in a small cinema that
Yeah.
most people don't go to. And After Sun had only 2 screenings for the whole festival. And by the second screening, everybody was like
Yeah,
going
yeah, yeah, yeah.
crazy. And you know how this played out
Mm,
in terms of the film's journey and the UK film industry, how it
yeah, yeah, yeah.
basically changed it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something to be written on all of that as well, and also that now everything that comes out sort of as a debut by particularly by a female filmmaker in the wake of After Sun is sort of judged by After Sun in a way. It's
Yes.
kind of interesting
Yeah.
how that happened.
In a way, it's really scary for me because it's an impossibly high standard
Yeah.
to hold a film to. And I've heard from people in various capacities in the industry that this is how the conversation goes. When you're pitching a project to your funders, you get asked, is this going to be the next After Sun?
Jesus,
Should I
yeah.
put my money in? And I remember a couple of years ago, in Locarno, there was a private masterclass thing for people who were attending Locarno as the industry academy, where Charlotte Wells was there, and I asked her about this, um, and she seemed equally concerned,
Right.
like as far as for her next project and for this paradox of actually opening everything up, opening the industry up and new opportunities to um, women, underrepresented and queer women, etc., is just having the opposite effect sometimes.
Mm,
That it's actually clamping down on productions that could be much more free
yeah.
in the way that they're being made. But
Yeah.
if you're cornered by this question at this very stage of your script development, let's say, what are you gonna say? Like,
Yeah. And it's also kind of like, along with that narrative of female filmmakers are not allowed to fail, you know what I mean? It's like now Charlotte Wells has to live up to herself in an impossible
yeah.
way. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you and other directors, if you're not up to that standard, it's like you're never going to make another movie again.
Yeah, and it's really funny, especially this year, looking at the Cannes program, everybody's noticed that there's no big Hollywood names to hide behind. So it's basically the year of the auteur,
Mm,
the European and global auteur. So you see so many directors, usually men of a certain age, returning with a new film
mm,
again after some silence or recently after having made a film recently. But there's this kind of the stamp of Andrzej Zvyagintsev, the stamp of Paweł Pawlikowski,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
um, the very particular patterns of auteurism you can really see.
yeah.
And I
And this,
wonder I wonder whether people really put that to the test in the same way, or is it just,
yeah,
oh, it's just another Pawlikowski, another Hamaguchi?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
you know me, I have an inherent kind of suspicion towards this kind of ca-
mm,
categorical thinking
yeah,
when
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
comes to filmmakers, because it's, I don't know, haven't we
yeah, yeah.
already dispensed with the auteur?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's funny because I'm doing I'm planning a sort of series of like lectures on here, and I think auteur theory is one of the ones I really want to hammer. Do you know what I mean? Say
Please.
why it still structures the film industry and film criticism and everything, and why it shouldn't, and why we should have left that behind. But I mean,
Yeah.
I fall into the same trap because I said to you, I do want to talk about the Pawlikowski and I do want to talk about Hamaguchi, but in my defense, it's kind of like because I have loved particular films of those
Yeah.
previously, but I don't want to kind of fall into that Oh, that's all I want to see, Trap. So we will talk about other filmmakers. But it's interesting you talked about the Hollywood thing there, because there was somebody who'd written on Substack about what this year's festival represents in terms of a kind of rejection of Hollywood, a sort of, we are kind of going to try and redefine what cinema is. This piece was sort of arguing up. I'll link to it in the show notes after we've finished. But it's an interesting sort of sense of how it sees itself now in the kind of in the sort of future direction of filmmaking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is going to be a watershed moment in some way, even if it doesn't have any major repercussions. But there's let me phrase it nicely. So, in previous years, when there were big Hollywood productions, Cannes could have used them as a crutch to
Right.
make sure they have, as
Yeah.
a festival, the prestige, the attention,
Yeah.
the
Like
media
Top Gun.
coverage. Exactly. Now, it seems to me that maybe it's going to be a test as to how important the stamp of Cannes is
Mm,
for a film that is perhaps not as easy or likely to travel outside of the art house audiences.
sure.
But if a film that, let's say, Hamaguchi's all of a sudden, which is in French and Japanese, and it's in some ways quite intense and very intellectually articulated, and it is 3 hours long, wouldn't have a chance really for larger distribution.
Yeah.
But perhaps if it wins, the Cannes stamp of Cannes winner could do wonders for that film. So I'm curious to see if a more unpredictable title like that wins, whether a Cannes win actually means something in this day and age
Yeah.
when the film doesn't have the crutches of um, being a major Hollywood hit with like star power.
Sure, sure. And just before we get into the films then, I just wondered how much you had sort of heard about or read or listened to any of the kind of controversy. I mean, we talked about just before we came on mic this one about Canal Plus, which obviously like you hadn't read about, so I won't go into that. People can read about the sort of signatories to this letter against Canal Plus and its ownership. But there definitely seemed to me to be that vibe of post Berlin, where journalists were trying to get a soundbite or stir a controversy by asking directors, actors about, Gaza, or that question of should films be political. It seemed that there was one of those questions in every single press conference, and it struck me some of it was a bit sort of bad faith in a way.
Yeah, I always feel a little bit uncomfortable and have some secondhand embarrassment when something like this comes up because, and then saying this, I risk sounding like vendors
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
somebody else saying, okay, these questions don't belong in the press conference.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And to be clear, I don't believe that they don't belong. I think they do. I also don't believe that press conferences are necessarily about the films. There are press kit informations, there are synopses, there are interviews, there are reviews for the audience to actually get a sense of the film. So, in the way I see it, press conferences are the space where these conversations can happen. But because answers could be so easily weaponized and put into that context of clickbait, and usually it's the trade publications who are the first to ask these things because they want to be the one publishing the scoop. The big rivalry between Screen International and Variety is really palpable oftentimes. So I do also think that some of these questions are asked in bad faith
right.
because the thinking behind it is, are you going to be a good person? Are you going to stand behind what you say? Or are you going to be a bad
Yeah,
person and give us something to write about? And in a way, what happened in Berlin, I think Wim Wenders made a fool of himself saying this
right.
because what the hell? Like, you of all people,
Well, it
you
was
have
ill
built
thought through, at the very least, wasn't it?
yeah, you have built your career on
Yeah,
political cinema. It's a weird thing to say, but then again, Trisha Tuttle had to do so much damage control afterwards that it made it impossible to
mm,
do the damage control without sounding a little bit weird and out of touch.
yeah,
And I'm sure she is definitely not out of touch. And but it's giving an impossible. It's putting festival directors in an impossible position, and everything really. I don't know. I think it caved in on under Trish Tuttle in a way that Thierry Fremont would never allow himself,
No, that's interesting.
because he
Yeah, yeah,
hasn't done any damage control. He hasn't had to do anything. Like, the
yeah.
guy is. Uh, I don't know. I don't know how much to make it about the status that he has and the power and
Mm,
patriarchy and whatever, but you can really tell that he has not been under the same pressure
yeah,
in his festival in terms of programmation, whether there's Palestinian films, etc. Like,
yeah.
that's not been
It's
talked
not the
about
same
at
thing.
all.
Yeah. I
Where
guess the link to the subsidies of the Berlinale
Mhm.
Festival, and the politicians getting involved, I guess that kind
True.
of amps it up a little bit, you know?
Of course, yeah. But then it's completely impossible, because you're running a festival that is supposedly an independent entity, but within the context of governmental funding,
Yeah,
you literally that's what you can do.
yeah,
Um,
for
yeah.
sure.
But in a way,
Mm,
I think that manifests in a different way here in Cannes, because it feels like we're kind of living in a completely separate bubble.
yeah, yeah,
Even if Javier Bardem is asked, and he's always very articulate, and other people have been also quite articulate in press conferences or in interviews, it still is not enough to actually ground people in the real world in a similar way.
yeah,
Instead of, for example, I would have loved these trade publications or the clickbait articles to spotlight the second year of the Palestinian pavilion, the fact that they are actually giving out funding and for displaced Palestinian filmmakers. They are raising money. It's completely grassroots organization. There's no governmental money involved. Like, this is happening for the second year. Last year was its inauguration. This doesn't get any
any
traction.
play, yeah,
It's really sad, because what is it for in the end?
yeah. Yeah, and I guess as well, sort of that role of the film festival, film festivals broadly. I think people are asking about that because it's the star power thing seemed to have taken over the last 10 years. It's like I was just getting like with the Oscars, I get kind of nonplussed with it. With the festivals, it was the same. So at least maybe the journalistic narrative is actually behind where the intentions are when it comes to things like that, which is interesting because obviously journalists want to, have the story that's going to play to the widest audience in that sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's kind of problematic. But in terms of I mean, we had a little laugh when we were sort of texting backward and forward, in terms of the films themselves and the strength of the competition and the overall program, because you always hear mixed messages about all of this, but you were saying that you think it has been good, kind of like the standard and what the films are trying to do in sort of commenting on contemporary culture and what have you.
I think I'm usually more inclined to like films than
Yeah,
a lot of other colleagues. I don't really take that much pleasure into trashing films or trashing a whole selection or saying this is the weakest year. And you hear it every year. People always say this is the weakest year. It's never been so bad. It's so bad. And then the next year arrives, and like, oh no, actually, last year was great. Like, this year, this is where things are just completely ruined.
yeah.
Um, I haven't seen, I don't think I've been able to see at any point the whole competition in Cannes in the 7 years that I've been here. So I cannot speak from that point of view of like complete, no, what's the word?
You like,
Completionism.
yeah, 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 yeah,
But what I've seen from competition is diverse and it's interesting. In some ways, James Gray's Paper Tiger is the closest to what we were used to getting in terms of American big-ish, but still indie film with some star power. Scarlett Johansson is in it, Adam Driver is there, Miles Teller is the lead
yeah.
at that film. But in a way, it was so subdued. It's one of the very, very few films in the competition who are in English. And I found that was really refreshing.
Mm.
So many films this year are in other languages, like not the native language of the person who's making them,
Oh, that's
or
interesting.
they're a new co-production that allows for both. I'm just going to name a few. Hamaguchi's film, All of a Sudden, that is set in both Japan and France, so it's spoken in both Japanese and French. Romanian director Cristian Mungiu has made a film in Norway. spoken Romanian and Norwegian and English too. Valeska Grisebach, German director. She's made a film in Bulgaria, and the whole film is in Bulgarian completely. Asghar Farhadi has made a film in France, Parallel Tales, which is based on Kieślowski's Decalogue Part 6. Yeah, a second film that he's done in a different language. So that variety, you can really tell that
Yeah.
things are shaping, films are being shaped by majority and minority co-productions, which leads to a diversification of settings, of themes, of interpretation of cultures, in some ways more successful than others. For example, Parallel Tales, I think maybe it was very successful at being a French film, but it definitely was not successful at being an Asghar Farhadi film.
Right. Okay.
Whatever
Yeah.
that means.
Yeah. I've kind of seen a few people talk about that in a kind of disparaging way. Yeah. I mean, you said as well. So that was on your kind of disappointments list. Do you find it kind of a little bit, derivative, is what I've heard, or
I
not doing anything new really?
Yeah, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it depends on where you position the film.
Yeah.
And this one was primed for attention. It's very well casted. Some of France's top actors are in it, and of course, it's been given a very big budget. It's part of, I think, a project to adapt all of the Decalogue parts. So I guess all of this opportunity has been given to Farhadi because of his status of the auteur. But what we have here is it's an okay, silly, at times film that is very French.
Right.
And as I say, this is not a bad thing. And I really, really loved seeing Isabelle Huppert light her cigarette in a toaster. This is
What, in
something.
an electric toaster?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
You cannot invent this shit. It was really great. Kieślowski would never, obviously.
Right.
But in terms of the plot, and it was a derivative thing because it is an adaptation and a remake. But what I kept thinking about is what happens to Decalogue when you remove the religious element and the idea of punishment and the inherent Catholic guilt and worry that somebody is always watching over you and you cannot allow yourself a bad deed.
Yeah.
And that's what forces people to do even worse deeds in the end.
Right.
So I think ethically this aligns with Farhadi's films, but it just feels devoid of something within the remake. That was my criticism.
Right.
Otherwise, it was fun.
Okay.
Overall, but
Interesting.
very, very much within the Antonioni blow up,
Okay.
and other French films that were being referenced. So
Right.
yeah,
Alienated, ennui, and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
and also people who just like invent stories in order to young guys inventing stories in order to sleep with women they find
Right. Okay.
attractive, and
Right.
then
Yeah.
there's infidelity and all these narrative tropes within an interpersonal relationship that I just am so allergic to right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is another tangent I could go on to, but I really don't believe that infidelity is a viable dramatic arc anymore in this day and
Right.
age,
Okay.
as
Yeah.
it used to be. It's people can just talk about stuff in a different way today. But
Yeah. No, that's an interesting point. Maybe that's something for a piece to come out on Substack in the future, maybe.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about Fatherland then. So this is Paweł Pawlikowski's new film. Sort of Ida and Cold War as standards, and his earlier films as well, of course. But this is a kind of biographical fiction, isn't it? Whereas his other films have been kind of original
Completely
fictions in
like
this. And
like a composites of people that may have existed, but
right,
nobody was really a person. Whereas this film, at its center, is the Mann family. So
yeah,
this Thomas Mann, who's aging, is returning from his exile for the first time from the States to Germany to receive an award in West Germany and then another award in East Germany. He's joined by his daughter, played by Sandra Hüller, who seems like an incredible character and an incredible person.
Mm.
I didn't know anything about Erica Mann. Actually, after having watched the film, I went into a deep dive, and she had been a war journalist. She is also a published author. Um, really impressive biography herself.
Yeah.
But the film is mostly about Klaus Mann, her twin brother, and also the son of Thomas Mann, who is also an author, published a book called Mephisto
Yeah.
and a few other books, and is actually buried in a cemetery very close to here in
Right.
Cannes.
Okay.
So he died of suicide in Cannes. And this is basically how the film begins.
Right.
Of course, there is a catalyst, which is Klaus's condition or depression, and everything that happens plays out with this in the background. So you can really read the film as a family drama, like a tragedy that is ripping them apart and bringing them together, which I think is the interpretation of the film that I align with the most and makes me feel
Mm.
more I don't know, closer to in a way, because I've always loved Paweł Pawlikowski's films when they have been actually about people, not that much about how people fit in the frame, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of that, isn't there, in Ida? It's the sort of negative space and all that kind of stuff. But I've also read though that with Ida and Cold War, which are much more kind of somber and tragic, there in this film there is a kind of almost an unexpected comic and satirical tone that runs through it. Is that true? You know?
Yeah, there were moments that I found also quite funny. But I think it's an interesting film in the way that it's so talky, and it really, I would say, needs the viewer to be well versed in a
Okay.
specific part of European history or even cultural history, because even if you're not familiar with Thomas Mann's writings, that's not necessarily a prerequisite. In a way, it's an untraditional biopic in that sense.
Mm.
But you have to know more about the ideals of how Germany was trying to construct its identity anew in the years directly
After the
following the
war,
Second
yeah,
World War.
yeah,
So there's a lot of talk about intellectuals who have been aligned with Nazis and then have since returned to the good side. There's a lot of talk of blacklisting, famous composers, actors. These names are being floated as completely normal, and a huge chunk of the film actually questions the Enlightenment ideals.
yeah. Okay.
So there are two um, scenes where Thomas Mann's character gives two speeches in order to accept these awards, and they play almost in full, um, where he talks about Goethe, and both awards are kind of like related to Goethe. So there's a lot of commentary on how Goethe become became a symbol of that part of German history.
Right.
And the film is alluding to the fact that now Germany wants to make a certain kind of symbol out of Thomas Mann
Right.
in the
Right. Right.
same way. So all of this to say, I don't know how well it really translates, especially intellectually. Outside of Europe is the most Eurocentric film that I've seen in a
Okay.
long time.
Yeah.
But I think what wins me over is that it's in its hyper specificity. Like it's really, really hyper specific in intellectual terms. It does manage to speak about today's separating the art from the artist.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that question of how artists are being used as political
Yes,
mouthpieces, which is obviously a key thing today, you know?
truly, truly. But you can really tell in the film that Paweł Pawlikowski really is going for that.
Right,
So he's a very calculated filmmaker, and even if it's very easy for him, it seems to yield like amazing performances from everybody. The film is really perfect, as in self-contained,
quite
visually
short,
stunning.
it's quite short, isn't
It's
it?
the shortest. I think is the shortest film in competition for sure. It's
Wow.
less than 80 or around 80 minutes,
Mm.
which is great because he never overstays his welcome. And
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's a
good.
reason for people to like it
Yeah.
because yeah, it's so self-contained. and rigorous and political in a way that can easily translate to jury, I think.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
one of the top billed ones for the
For the
prizes.
awards. Yeah, 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 yeah. And Lord knows we can do with auteurs who know when to leave the party, as it were. Yeah.
I know.
Um, yeah. So, in a massive gear change, then tell me a little bit about teenage sex and death at Camp Miasma.
Ah, insane fun.
Right.
That was so fun. I'm still in awe of Cannes' decision to program this film as an opening night, as the second important section in the festival on certain regard. And that was a raucous party. It was amazing to see the images that we all saw in that room, to share them. It's just, I don't know, it's a film of liberation. And in their introduction, Jane Schonbrun said it's a film about joy, and it's a joyous film. And we all knew that we were going to see basically a slasher film,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
this
yeah.
is going to be sex and death and
Right.
teenagers. So it really seemed like a provocation at
Yeah,
some point, but when you watch it, you really feel quite joyful.
yeah.
It's there's so much to say, but it would involve a lot of points,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to
No,
do
no, that's
that
fine.
here.
That's fine. But I mean, I think it is a sort of revert from right again what I've read because I've never seen it, but I've read it's a kind of attack of the genre tropes and how that moralizing against desire, particularly sort of teenage desire or non
Mm.
heteronormative desire, and how that is pushed in the genre, and this is a sort of playing with that or a reversal of that.
Yeah, and I think it would be very interesting to have this film talked about in curriculums, to be fair,
Okay.
because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we all at some point read Barbara Creed's book on the final girl and monsters and all of these things. And for me, it's been quite interesting when reading and researching monster studies, how that relates as well to defying the normativity, whether it's body, whether it's heterosexuality or cisgender, all of these, like the transness and the monstrosity and the queerness are a huge
Mm,
part of how we read films as
mm.
well, especially horror. But um, it's very clever because the film does obviously work with these texts,
Yeah.
but it does something with them that is not didactic, that it kind of also presupposes your knowledge. So you're
Okay.
in it, you're in you're in on the joke from the beginning.
Mm,
It doesn't look down on the viewer. It doesn't presuppose that they're a fan of either slashers or um, slasher recreations too. So it's really palatable, really watchable film, which is not something that I could easily say for Jane Chamberlain's previous films. I
yeah, she
really
was.
like them, but they just
Yeah, just to
different.
for people who don't know, they made I saw the TV Glow, and we're all going to the World's Fair. I mean, again, were you a sort of fan of those types of movies, and then were kind of sort of expecting something, and this was different to what you expected,
Mm,
right?
I've been a huge fan of these first films. They have been so mesmeric and literally bring me to another realm.
Mm,
And I think part of that, of course, is Jane's ability to construct a world out of almost nothing, and ideas and abstractions and potent desire underneath every single frame.
right.
In this case, the film is substantially bigger budget. Um, and I'm guessing because there were so many more people involved and so much more money involved, it had to be a little bit more palatable. I would love to have seen a more hermetic and enigmatic film
Mm,
for that bigger budget, but just the world doesn't work that way.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So within that context, I think it's really cool how much Jane translates their own sensibilities through a form that is more reachable, I
Yeah.
guess. It's a film that could be shown in bigger theaters, that people could go out of interest to see, let's say, Gillian Anderson in
Yeah,
a
of
role
course.
that she's absolutely spectacular and really made to play.
Mm,
So many, like, she's obviously a queer icon since the X-Files, so lesbians really love her, straight
Yeah.
women love her, straight men, like everybody loves Gillian Anderson for sure.
Mm. Yeah.
But this one is, I think, especially a huge gift for the lesbians. This whole
Yeah, yeah,
film,
yeah, yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
would love it. It's very much about learning how to handle and express your own desires
Mm.
instead of castrating them.
Yeah. I mean, the filmmaker is trans, and I think that I've read a couple of quotes and sort of and they talk about that idea of the way that sort of film prescribes what sexuality should be, in kind of the classical films that everybody knows, and like that translating to a filmmaker who obviously has, I mean, they say themselves that they've struggled and kind of coming to terms with that, but then that this film is a sort of, exploration of that sort of that difficulty and the contradictions that are in, someone's mind about what sexuality and what identity are.
Yeah, and I have to say the film is actually really delicate when it approaches these topics. It's not hampering, it's not didactic in any way. You can read it as an allegory easily, or you can watch it surface level. I think it will still sink in. That is about exactly what you said that
Mm,
it's about, but it's also really fun. And I think this is what
great.
elevates it even more for me because it's the best of both worlds, really, and not in a way that it conceals what it's trying to do. Like let's
Sure.
say a Marvel film could do.
Yeah.
So yeah, popular appeal and actually a lot of really good ethics underneath, and a lot of fun and joy in making films. Really,
Oh, great. Oh, that sounds great. Yeah. So
insane kills in that film.
oh,
So
really?
it is
Okay.
not for the faint-hearted.
Right, right.
It's not scary, but it's gory.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's funny because I've been watching like a combination of The Pit and The Boys, which is kind
Oh
of,
God.
and they're both gory in their own kind of way. So I'm kind of on that trip anyway. Mind you, I don't know when this will come out. I mean, it's funny. We were talking to Neil last night. We are just out with him at the Nickel Cinema, and we were
Mm,
just talking about that sort of sense of how many of these films are going to make it. Well, first of all, I'll have the advantage of being able to see it at London Film Festival, some of these works, and
yeah.
other avenues. But a lot of these films, it's just terrible how the distribution possibilities for a lot of them.
Yeah. Teenage Sex and Death has been acquired by Movies. I think it's also a
Okay,
movie production.
right.
It's gonna be out nationwide in August, I think
Okay.
end of August. It's showing in June as part of South by Southwest London.
Oh, cool.
So London audiences will be able to see it, other audiences later in the game. But
Mhm.
I have to say, already there's been a few acquisitions for the UK, which I'm pretty happy with. Hamaguchi's film has been bought by Curzon
Great.
already. Um, Fjord, Christian Mungiu's film, has been bought by Picture House for release. And there was something else. Oh, yes, Curzon also bought Cleo Barnard's film,
Okay.
I See Buildings Fall Like Lightning, which premiered just the other day. To very good responses already, which I'm very pleased about. It's a
Yeah, yeah. No, I
really, really good film.
love Cleo's films. And again, I mean, is it social realism again? Is it in that vein? But yeah, yeah.
It is, yes. It's based on a novel by Kieran Goddard of the same name, I See Buildings Fall Like Lightning. And the novel is composed of 5 monologues of 5 friends who grew up on the same council estate that no longer exists. It's been destroyed, and it's following them in their 30s, basically, how
Mm,
to be together. And also, it takes place in Birmingham,
right.
which is different from Bradford. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
she's officially closed the Bradford trilogy.
Mhm.
But the film is, yeah, I think it really carries the same convictions and the same spirit of belonging, even though it switches to a different place. And it's a group protagonist at its core, 5 people, and I think it's almost impossible to pull it off
Right.
for a film with such emotional intensity and social realism, and it pulls it off masterfully. So kudos
Great.
to Cleo and her team for this. It's really a really good watch.
Yeah.
It's
No, I
one of
mean,
the very few British films really this year in
right.
Cannes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, Loach is there, isn't he? Does he have a new film as well? Like, I saw him being clipped up, and I didn't even look to see if it was his
No,
film
no.
or whatever.
He was presenting a
That's it.
screening
Yeah.
of Land and Freedom
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
on the beach. So these are free screenings
Okay.
that are organized every night of the festival. So anybody can just go pull up a chair or sit on the beach and watch the
Right.
film.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was there to introduce the film and to say that filmmaking is always political, which, bless him,
Of course.
he's completely right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's interesting with him, and then with Clio Barnard. I mean, and actually, there's a piece coming out that I've contributed to. There's a publication coming out on social realism, and where what its limits are, and how it kind of maybe
Mm.
needs to be repurposed in different ways for contemporary audiences. Do you know what I mean? And what the limits of it are right now. So it's interesting to see what Cleo Barnard's piece. I'm interested
Mm.
to see what she does kind of with that mode of filmmaking in a way. Um, so yeah, maybe we can talk a little bit about The Unknown. So again, this is Arthur Harari, who made Anatomy of a Fall, and I mean, just reading it, this seems very different. I mean, I'd sort of I've been seeing that this is kind of like compared
Can you can
to.
you can you do the honors and actually read out the synopsis
Well, no,
aloud?
all I've got is that this is kind of like a psychological fantasy, and it's been compared to Bertrand Bonello's The Beast, which I'd sort of written about recently because it's got Léa
Hmm.
Seydoux in it as well. So I
Yeah.
don't know, what was your sort of take on this?
Okay. So it's a body swap film.
Okay,
That is a surprise, but it does happen in the first 5 minutes of the film, and it's part of the official synopsis. So I feel confident in saying this. It's a film based on a graphic novel written by Harari himself and his brother. So both of them have published this graphic novel a couple of years ago,
mm,
I think, and now it's made into a film. Um, at the center, there is this lonely photographer guy who has no friends and a kind of stalkery attitude. We meet him for the first 5 minutes of the film, and then
okay,
he goes to a party, takes an MDMA pill, um, and then sees this woman, Léa Seydoux, from across the bar, follows her to a basement. They have sex. And then when the character of Léa Seydoux wakes up the next morning, it turns out it's the photographer in her body.
right, okay,
So the premise of the film is that there's a disease or something that happens to people when these particular people have sex, they swap their bodies.
okay,
And from then the film is kind of investigative, trying to find the original possessor of the
right,
body and the soul and like
okay,
to potentially bring it back. It's very realistic. The
okay,
film, there's nothing supernatural in it really,
all right,
but I don't know. I think it's a really interesting premise, and the psychological thriller part of it is well made. You could really tell that the script is tight up until a point. I think I have a problem with the film that it doesn't really do much with its provocative premise. It's a very long film, and then things develop. Another person comes in. They try to find out what has been happening to everybody. There are some scenes that seem quite revelatory
mm,
in the way that the filmmaker is probably thinking about the future of mankind beyond gender.
right,
There are parts of the film that,
post-humanist type stuff. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that suggests this kind of new identity where
right,
gender is not a thing. But for me, it was quite disappointing that at no point in the film, transness never came up, even as a word. As if
okay,
in these French people, they all seem like pretty educated and have friends and go on the internet, etc. Nobody, even the Gen Z character girl who's always online, she never also mentioned trans identity.
right,
So part of me is thinking, well, this could have been a very provocative, in a positive way, sorry, a movie.
movie,
Because if you think of body swap, usually it's the horror of the body swap
yeah,
that And that's what the characters are feeling in this film as well. It's
Mm.
like, oh, suddenly I'm in a woman's body. That's weird. I'm going to fetishize it, but I'm also scared of it. A woman in a man's body is also terrified. She doesn't want to be naked. She doesn't want to look at her penis. It's like normal horrified reactions in a way.
Yeah.
But if you think about a person, let's say they have body dysmorphia or gender dysphoria, and suddenly they wake up in a different body of a different gender without having to go through surgery or hormone therapy. Like, this could be a
Yeah, and it
fantasy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And I really hate to be a person to say, oh, this film should have done this.
Mm.
But I felt like this was an opportunity to at least interrogate it or entertain it,
Mm.
because it seems to me a bit unnecessary to stick to the same horror
Yeah.
trope of it. So, yeah, this is probably a bit too much to say to people who maybe haven't seen it yet.
Mm.
But I don't know.
It's
I'm very curious when it has
yeah.
a wider release and more people have weighed on it.
It's so interesting. I think that that's the mark really of a film that kind of stands the test of time. I mean, maybe that's maybe a general statement, but when films land the ending and they actually have the courage of their convictions, and like I see you see so many movies where it's kind of like there's either a cop out and a kind of return to a kind of happy ending or the status quo,
Yeah.
or like a massive spectacle of explosion and everything just goes mental, you know what I mean? And then you're like, because it's meant to shock you, and
Yeah.
like the ending as a sort of
True.
payoff. Yeah, there's a lot of that I find, those two kind of scenarios. But
Yeah,
when
there's so
films
many
land
films
something,
that really want to tie it up with a neat bow,
yeah,
even
yeah,
if
yeah,
they're starting really subversive. I've noticed this in the competition quite a lot too.
mm,
And for me, personally, as a viewer, this is kind of boring. I
mm,
think I would prefer the film to rapidly end without any resolution.
yeah,
But I guess this is not how films are made.
no, no, no. I
Maybe
mean,
there's always a
yeah,
producer knocking there and saying, hey, we need the resolution. Make sure it's a happy ending. Otherwise, this money.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was interesting actually watching, Mark Jenkins' film Rose of Nevada,
Of
and
course. Yeah.
I haven't had the chance to speak to him like seriously about it yet. But I think that's really bleak, the ending of that movie, like
Hmm.
properly dark, right? And nobody's really spoken about that as far as I can tell. So I'm really keen to
Yeah.
kind of have a few words with him about that and see what he makes of it.
Yes, I agree. And I'm really looking forward to what he says about
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
because it is quite disheartening.
Yeah, indeed.
But I wanted
So
to say
oh,
about
go
The
ahead.
Unknown that Lea Seydoux, of course, makes an incredible statement. She is like we've never seen her before. It's
Okay.
a very physical role because obviously she's playing a man in a woman's body. There's a lot to convey through her facial expressions and gestures, less so the body itself. But I have to say, the body itself that she embodies in this film, she is bigger than we've ever seen her.
Right.
And I think the film was shot maybe shortly after she had given birth. So her physicality is already different. And I guess because the film itself has the eerie quality of the beast.
Right.
I could really see her character in The Unknown being a continuation in some form of her character in The Beast. For me, there's a very clear cut, I think, tonal similarity. This is why I was also very curious to hear what you will make of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm looking
And
forward to that.
I wonder whether Harari is actually trying to emulate Bertrand Bonello's atmosphere for this film.
Mm,
I think Bonello is an infinitely better filmmaker um, than Harari is.
okay.
But we'll see. The
Yeah.
test of time will show. Lea Seydoux is also billed as one of the female performers that could stand to win tomorrow,
Okay.
the best
Right.
actress.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So a couple of more movies I do want you to say something on. So the other one that you mentioned was Butterfly Jam,
Hmm.
which is a debut, isn't it? So it's always nice when you see something that is by a new filmmaker that it seems like you
Actually,
liked.
actually, it's a third film.
Oh, is it? Where did I get that from then? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Maybe it was another debut that I told you about,
Right.
but
Right.
Butterfly Jam is interesting because it was divisive.
Okay.
It was one of the first films to play at the festival. Director is called Kantemir Balagov. People may remember him from Beanpole,
Right.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
film that
Yeah.
made a lot of waves in Cannes almost 10 years ago. And that was his second film. His first film was based on his own experiences of a Caucasian Russian from this autonomous region. So he's returned to talking about his identity as a Circassian. But this film, yeah, it's been quite a long time between Beanpole, which was like a very heavy,
Yeah.
formalistic
Yeah.
women's struggle film in the Soviet Union. Butterfly Jam is set more or less today in New York, in a family of immigrants, Circassians, and the casting is actually non-Russian and non-Circassian, which I
Mm,
think put a lot of people off.
right.
We have Barry Keogh play the father, the Circassian father. The son, who is the main character, he's played by a first-comer Turkish actor, Turkish American. Riley Keough is in the film
Right.
as the sister, and Harry Melling plays another Circassian. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a bit
Yeah.
all over the place in terms of casting.
Mm,
And I think people had huge expectations for it because they loved the formalism of Beanpole,
mm,
whereas Butterfly Jam is much messier, um, less sophisticated, and I think softer in
right.
heart because of that. That's the kind of films that I really go for, the films that
Okay.
are not perfect, that are trying something new.
Mm,
Um, it's a coming of age story for this boy who's in his early teenage years, who's training as a wrestler, and he's brought up by his single dad, and he gets to see his father at his weakest, basically. Um, is a cook in a diner, trying to be a big shot, but is actually just kind of, I don't know, all talk.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the question is, how do you model yourself after your father, whom you
Right.
obviously admire, but you see him that he's a bit of a loser? Um,
That
yeah.
rings very true to my life. Yeah, so I'll probably watch this with great interest.
There is a scene of the film that is really shocking and pretty grim. So
Right.
it may remind people of Beanpole, which also had a pretty shocking and grim scene. But that film, I think it rounds its ending up quite nicely. It has a wonderful cameo by a very famous actress that you would not expect to be in
Okay.
this film. And that's, I think, a great ending. And there are bits of magical realism in it at some point when you least expect it. Wonderful performance by a pelican, fantastic
Wow.
pelican,
Oh, great.
and a cotton candy machine.
Wow, this
It's
sounds intriguing.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I don't know. I think this film falls prey to the big expectations that a young, promising auteur like Kantemir Balagov arriving. He was, I think, 27 when he made Beanpole or something like that. So everybody really held him in high regard. And now, so many years later, he's made a film that rings really true. I think it's a very thoughtful and heartfelt film, but people are kind of disappointed because he's not giving them
Yeah.
the austere style and the preciseness that they were expecting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really wanted to spotlight this one
Yeah.
because of that. It just has a lot of heart.
Mm. It's interesting, like a filmmaker like that. Again, it would be so easy to make the same film over again, or very much in the same vein or style. So
Yeah.
yeah, going for something else is kind of interesting in the
I mean,
gear
especially
change. Yeah.
now, if he had made a film about Soviet
Yeah.
times now, so many years after the war in Ukraine has started, people would have ate it up so easily.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. No, for sure. Brilliant. Okay, I don't want to keep you all day because I know you're going to see the Valeska Griesbach film again this afternoon, but I do want to finish on All of a Sudden because, like, if ever there's a moment where you realize you're all in for a film, like it's this one for me because I love Drive My Car, love Wheel of
Mhm.
Fortune and Fantasy, I loved Evil Does Not Exist, and then you look at the subject matter, two scholars exchanging letters about chance and risk, and then it becomes about kind of mortality. It's got Virginia Efria in it, where I think it's okay for a man of my age to say that's an age appropriate kind of first moment for me. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I like her, and it seems like this again. I mean, you tell me whether you think this has got a chance of winning the overall prize. I don't know. You take it away. Did you like
I
this
would
one?
really love it to be fair. I think when I saw it, that was my first thought of like this would be a great winner.
Right.
Um, but also I'm, I guess, biased because I really love the film.
Mm,
I'm a huge fan of Hamaguchi's work. I've seen religiously everything that he's done, and I think he gets better at getting to the core of life. His films are, I think, very well constructed and have a great structure and very well acted, and you can tell that they're super good in their craft, but they're always revealing. They're
mm.
kind of bare in a way that is so touching,
Yeah, that's so
is
good.
so
Yeah.
real to the point that it may even look naive. I think this is something like a criticism that people have voiced for this film that is a bit cutesy, almost utopian. Like in Japan, everything is better and we can make the world better. And if we just all love each other, kind of hippie mentality.
Okay.
But I don't think that's fair to the film because it's very rigorous. It has so much philosophy in it, not in the way that Fatherland has
Right.
philosophy and history in it, but just like acted out philosophy and thinking through things together with the audience and the characters. Just a lot of ethics of care discussed, capitalism and how it affects our structures of care. Most of the film takes place in a care home with this alternative um, technique of caring, which is more humane, supposedly. So I love it that it's based on nonfiction compendium of essays and letters.
Oh,
I
that's
think,
interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah.
yeah, these two scholars that
Oh,
you
they actually
mentioned.
wrote to each other. Wow. Okay. God, I need
Yes,
to get in a deep dive of this before I see it. Yeah.
yeah. So this was the book that is a correspondence between a philosopher and an anthropologist,
Right.
and they exchanged these letters. And at the course of their exchange, the philosopher finds out she's terminally ill. They're both Japanese,
Okay.
and they continue talking and exchanging letters. And at some point, this book lands in the lap of Hamaguchi, and he's really fascinated by it, and he decides to adapt it. And it's one of the few instances that I can think of when a nonfiction book has been adapted to a
Oh, yeah. That's
fiction
great.
that is not, it's not a historical fiction or anything like that. It's just ideas and propositions. I think that's what it is. It's 3 hours of propositions towards the audience, towards the future, and yeah, mortality and the things we hold dear. And most probably, the thing that is going to stay with me forever is the performance. It's a double lead performance by Virginia Fira and Tao Akamoto.
Mm.
Both of them speak both Japanese and French to each
Wow.
other.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of walking and talking,
Yeah.
a lot of understanding each other, a lot of curiosity, a lot of intimacy between the two women that feels maybe pushing the limits of plausibility, but it's easy to be on board with
Okay.
because you want to know, you want to believe a world like this exists where people can be so close to each other and actually meet and share and help each other through theater and experimental theater and care homes and palliative care. And in a way, I think the film is perhaps the peak of what Hamaguchi has been trying to say in
Okay.
his films so far.
Yeah. Not building to a point of, and this is it kind of thing.
Like a community,
Right.
it's humanistic in a deeply personal and heartfelt way that, yeah, I guess cynical people will be probably scoffing at it
Right.
because of its ideals, but it's this kind of thing that if you believe in it, it's better. Like, I prefer to believe in it, that the
Mm.
world can be like, the life can be worth living,
Yeah.
basically, even
Yeah.
if the world is shit. This is the cradle of the film.
Right.
And we arrived there after 3 and something hours, and it feels so earned and wonderful. I think that was the one premiere that I managed to go to of the official competition. It was stunning. Everybody was crying in
Wow.
tears of happiness. Virginia Fira, bless her, like her whole makeup completely poured down because of all the emotions. I really hope this film gets a big award. It would be a shame if it goes empty-handed, actually. And yeah, very, very, very excited for you to see it so we can talk about Hamaguchi.
Oh, great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll definitely probably be down at, if it's been sold to Curzon, I'll be down at Curzon Soho, in the first week for sure.
Yes.
Um, that was brilliant, Savina. Thanks so much for doing that. I really, really appreciate it. Just before you go, tell me about meeting Dua Lipa
Yeah, that
really
was a very
quickly.
strong start of the festival, I have to
Oh,
say.
oh, great. Yeah, what happened
Um,
there then?
yeah, ending up at a party at Cannes is always the most coveted thing, but
Right.
at the same time, the hardest thing to do. So I decided this year, previous years, I have begged for party invites. This year, I decided that I'm too old to do it, so I will not do it anymore. As a result, I didn't go to almost any parties. But I went to one which was the premiere party for Paper Tiger, James Gray's film, where Adam Driver was present and James Gray. And I think that was more or less it. It wasn't really a celebrity studded party. They were also cordoned off somewhere else as celebrities. And there were a bunch of other people, film industry or whatnot, hangers on, all sorts of people in a very tiny space on the beach. So it wasn't really a glamorous party by any stretch, but it was cozy. And I was talking to a friend, and with the corner of my eye, I see Dua Lipa talking to James Gray. It's like, okay, she for sure is here. I'm not imagining it. It's her. She looks exactly how she looks in the pictures. And I'm starting to think about ways to get closer to her, just to be in her presence. And I'm completely starstruck. I don't care. Also, it really helps that I may be a journalist, but she's not a film star. So I feel like it's fair game for me to approach her because
Yeah.
it's not awkward on a professional level. Um, so I do make my way shortly to her. She turns around to me and another person that was behind me, and she asks for a lighter. I could not get it fast enough.
You are like that.
Unfortunately,
Here's the light.
it would have been the great story to say that I lit Dua Lipa a cigarette, but it didn't happen. Some other guy did. I hate this person. Bless you, but you shouldn't have done this, taken it away from me. But anyway, I managed to speak to her for a little bit and basically thank her for spotlighting Bulgarian novel that was in the short list for
Oh,
the
yes.
International Booker Prize. She Who Remains
Mm.
by Renee Karabash, a wonderful English translation of a book that was published a while ago in Bulgarian. I'm so happy that it got first longlisted and shortlisted, and it was a couple of nights before the Booker Prize was announced, to be fair. And Dua Lipa was very excited because she had already spoken about the book in her book club and made a speech of how happy she is to have discovered it because the book is set in Albania too. So it was an interesting convergence between two Balkan girls. I was like, this is great for me.
Fantastic. What a
And
great
yes, I
story.
have a selfie, which made me
Yeah.
famous for 5 minutes. It was a very good feeling. And I was walking back from the party when I found out that Bulgaria had just won Eurovision
Oh,
at
yeah,
the
yeah,
same
yeah, yeah.
night. So I was thinking it's a great day for Bulgaria and me.
Of course. Yeah. That's it. It all converged. Sometimes all of these things come together in the
I
right way. That's
know. It's
fantastic.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Great. Well, thanks so much for that,
No, thank
Savina.
you for
That's
having me. It's
no
always
problem
such a
at
huge
all.
pleasure to talk to you. In this case, I guess I was more talking at you
No,
for
no,
the
that's all
latter
good.
half, but I cannot wait. Please invite me again so we can
No,
chat
well, I was
more about
thinking
movies.
we'll do a proper episode of this where we get into your origin story and we talk about cinema going and all that kind of stuff, so
Sure.
we'll do that for sure. Yeah, and in the show notes when this goes out to the subscribers, I'll put all of it, rather than list all your publications now, just send me everything and I'll put it
Mhm.
in the show notes at the bottom. But enjoy the rest of today.
Yeah, and thank you
And
to these 17 people who have
yeah,
been with us.
thanks for
This is
coming. Yeah, yeah.
amazing.
I know it makes me more confidence for my future film studies lectures that
People
are
are
going to
always
come up.
gonna come to listen to you, Dee.
No, no, I don't know about that. I think it's more what you've got to say this time around. That's for sure. Cool. All right. Well, I'll speak soon, and I look forward to seeing you when you're back in London.
Yes.
Cool.
Have a good weekend, you and everybody else, and thanks again for tuning in and for having me.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.